One of the most used tools in the church today, especially in the production environment, is video. From multi-site, multi-campus churches with a live broadcast online and to campuses, to the small church with one projector putting up slides for their pastor. There's very few churches out there that are completely video less. And so today I want to talk about some of the principles that we can apply when thinking through video systems for our church, because not everybody needs an LED wall, not everybody needs cameras, but there are some universal principles that can help us make great decisions as we're working with our video systems in our churches. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the House Lights podcast, where we explore the intersection of technical excellence and pastoral care, because serving behind the scenes requires both. I'm Gabe Johnson, your host, and today we're diving into video. I've really seen everything across the spectrum when it comes to video systems in the church. The church I'm at right now is a multi-site, multi-campus church that also broadcasts online. So we have, especially at our broadcast location, we've got cameras and we've got a control room, and we have shade control of those cameras. We've got LED walls on the stage behind the pastor, as well as LED walls as our main content IMAG walls for the people in the room. And then at every campus, we've got anywhere from one screen to 3 screens in every room, and in all the kids' rooms and in all the students' rooms. So a lot of video systems. And then on the other side of the church that I grew up in, we had one projector and we had like a computer connected to it. There was not like multiple sources. We eventually got like a little video switcher, which we'll get to later. And so just very, very simple video setups. I've seen, just everything across, everything in the middle as well. So whether you have $500, $50,000, or $500,000, these principles we're going to talk about today should apply to all of those situations. Cool. Let's dive in. The first principle that comes to video, and this is one of those that actually is like a pet peeve of mine, it drives me crazy, is consistency. And what I mean by consistency is that like the video looks right. Color consistency, proper white balance, that it's like bright enough in the room. This is especially important when you have multiple projectors. A lot of churches will have 2 screens, 2 projectors, or in our case, we often have 3. We've got one in the center, and then kind of 2 that are angled for those wider seats. I've seen 2, and I've seen like 2 TVs. This applies to 2 TVs, 2 projectors, 2 LED walls. It applies across the board. But like mismatched colors immediately feels unprofessional, and it's like, oh, like that one's, why is he like not natural like skin tones over here, but this person is like kind of green over here, or like, wow, he's really red over here and he's pale over here. It's when you have those mismatches in your color and in your white balance, it can look mismatched. On top of it looking mismatched, even if you only have one screen, it's not going to be as apparent. But when it can like make people look unnatural, right? If people on screen are always pale, or if your whites are not always white on screen, there may be like a weird shifted color. Or when you create a video, maybe you never have people on your screen. When you create a video, you spend a lot of time dialing in those colors that you choose, those graphics that you're producing. And if you then put it up on your screen and like none of the colors are the same, they've shifted all over the place, it's really frustrating and maybe doesn't have the same effect, same impact, the same aesthetic and design that you envisioned. Man, that's really like disappointing and misses the mark. But this is fixable. So the first place to start when looking at this is to set your white balance. A lot of projectors will have presets for your white balance. You can set either by temperature um, or by mixing red, green, and blue in the white to make it look exactly how you want it to look. I believe that a lot of people have a really good sense for what this should look like by eye. If you pull up a white screen, you can usually tell, oh man, that's a little bit blue. Now I will say you should make the assessment quickly, because as you stare at it, your eyes and brain do actually adjust to the colors you're looking at. And so that can be a little bit deceiving after a while. Go take a walk outside for 10 minutes and then come back and check your work. But if it's feeling too cool, like too blue almost, you just pull some blues out. If it's feeling too green and too like almost like halogen light, like, that kind of green cast you can get on people's skins with like not halogen, I'm sorry, fluorescent lighting. And if your white on screen feels like that, you can shift shift some greens out. Reds the same way. It's also helpful to look at people on there as well, because what skin tones should look like. You can also pull up your monitor from your computer and compare the two and make those white balance adjustments till it looks the same to your eye. And that's going to get you really, really, really close. Most people leave it kind of how it's set out of the box and they never touch that. But doing this can also just make it that much better. It doesn't take a terribly long time. And once you get like real nerdy with it, you can get really, really particular about it. We'll get to that in a minute, but just like trying to get the white balance right will make everything look so much better. At this point, I think it's also great to talk about the color space, which we're not going to get into the nitty gritty of like Rec 709 versus Rec 2020 and, different gamma curves. If you are using cameras or videos of people, whether it's live or pre-recorded, color space is going to matter a whole lot more. But this will also affect all of your graphics and everything like that. So your color space, the typical like industry standard color space is called Rec 709. And that just is like a very particular gamut of colors, where blue has a very specific value and red has a very like objective specific value, and green and all your secondary cyan, magenta, yellow, they all have an objective value. And that's how that these like the movies you watch, like they all are built in the same color space. They might choose a different grade, but they're all built in the same color space. So if your cameras are functioning in Rec 709, which is quite common, then you're going to want to have your projectors or your LED walls also in Rec 709. If you're shooting HDR content primarily, that will actually be like Rec 2020. So you just want to make sure that that is matching as best you can. Not all projectors are created equal. Not all of them have all of that control. And so the principle here is just to like be consistent and make it look as best you can with the tools that are at your disposal. So if you can't go in and calibrate everything to Rec 709, or if there's not an option to choose Rec 709, there often is in a lot of projectors. You can go and say color, and it's like auto, or someone's color space, it will say, you can say auto, or you can just select, hit the microphone, or you can just select Rec 709. That will get you most of the way there. To be able to do that kind of like color space calibration really, really well, you're going to need a color calibrator. There's a bunch from like Calibrite is the one that I use, and I connect it via USB to my laptop, and I connect a video source, or connect like a video output from my laptop to a projector, and it shows red, green, blue, white, cyan, magenta. It shows all of that, and this Calibrite color calibrator will actually see it with a like mechanical eye, right? it's comparing in the software. I use HCFR, but there's a ton of softwares out there. It's comparing the red that it knows it's outputting to the red that's being seen on the projector, or the LED wall, and then it shows you how far off they are, and then you can go into the projector settings and you can move that red. Ooh, I keep hitting this mic today. You can move that red, you can move that blue, you can move that cyan, and it's going to make all of your colors much more standardized. It's going to make it look much more natural and consistent across multiple devices. And so that's one of the things you cannot do by eye. And that's how you get really nerdy and you get really into it, is when you do those kinds of things. You get that calibrator, you get that software, and you learn to use it. It takes forever, and it's also like weirdly satisfying. I really enjoy doing that myself. So along with your white balance that you can do very often by eye or by the presets in the projector, if you're still noticing your colors are inconsistent across different projectors or different sources, maybe consider getting a color calibrator and learning to use some software to get that calibrated. You could also hire somebody to come in and do that. Probably reach out to any of the AVL integrators. They might have somebody that they could recommend and to get that done for you. But cleaning that up and making your projectors all match, making all your screens match. A lot of televisions even have these kinds of controls in them to affect your white balance, even to go in and color correct all your colors, depending on the television or the display that you're using. And so that will help you just create that consistency across all your screens. Now, this also applies, the consistency also applies to cameras, making sure that they are all white balanced the same, that they're all using the same color profile, that they're all just like in general looking the same. Sometimes you have like a green magenta adjustment on your cameras, and it will shift that tint. And so you don't want one camera, somebody looks like kind of like natural, and the next one they look green, or the next one they look red. And it's like, no, we want them all to look the same so that they match. It really just like, it removes the barrier of the screen, right? Especially when you're trying to connect with people. You want them to like, if you're trying to connect with people and you are shooting live video of a pastor, right? He's looking into the camera. You want people to forget that they're looking through a screen. Like, they're going to know it at the end of the day, but they don't want to feel the screen. So you don't want him to look like an alien there, even though if they look over here on the stage, he looks, natural, like a human. And so that consistency and that intentionality in your color choices, in your setup, and in your settings is going to help remove the screen itself as a barrier to connecting with people. Your white balance also needs to match your lights. So we'll kind of get into lighting for video a bit later because it's super important. But whatever the color temperature is that's hitting your subject, like this light over here is set to 5600, and my camera is set to 5600 as well, to get the most natural look because it's matched. I'm telling it the white light in the room is 5600. That over there is set much warmer so that it looks warm on camera. But if I were to set my white balance on the camera, telling it that is white light, that would then look white, not warm, but my skin would look super green and super cold because this is set to 5600. The same applies in your church with live video. You've got a pastor on stage or somebody in a studio, wherever you're at, that's your subject on a camera, whether it's pre-recorded or live. Match your white balance on your camera to your light. Each camera is a little bit different. How you can do that, you can use a white card, you can use the presets in there, you can dial it in manually with set the Kelvin temperature. Whatever method works best with your system, just dial that in, match it up. And auto white balance that selects where if you can like point it at the light or point it at white and hit auto and it will choose one and stay there. That can actually be really effective too. Just make sure that your auto white balance isn't changing the white balance as it detects different colors in the scene, because that will make your video not good. Principle number 2 is smooth execution. So this is going to depend on your setup specifically. So look at what you're doing and everything that you plan to do in your services for video content. If you are just using it to put up some Bible verses and lyrics to songs and maybe some graphics and a countdown video, man, that's going to be a super simple setup, and you don't need something like a video switcher. If you've got if you've got 2 video playback sources, maybe 2 computers, and you've got one that runs for lyrics and then one that's set up a little bit more to run videos, or maybe you've got some sort of video player, whether it's I remember I've used DVD players in church in the past, and or maybe it's a media server of some kind, a video playback device that's dedicated for that. Maybe it's just a second computer. Getting between those 2 is going to be important, and it can actually make it can make your services really distracting. If like I've seen people like change the input, like take the projector remote and change the input on the projector from like HDMI 1 to HDMI 2 in the middle of service, and it's like, ooh man, there's other ways to do that. This comes down to a couple different options. So you've got software that can handle a lot of this. Again, if you are keeping it super simple, something like the right software can let you put in all those videos, put in all those lyrics, graphics, scripture, slides, anything like that. And it's going to let you switch between them smoothly, whether it's cuts, whether it's fades. You can maybe fade to black before you go into a video. Those kinds of things. The most popular one is ProPresenter. ProPresenter 7 is awesome. I know there are others out there. I cannot vouch for them because I haven't used them myself, but I know there are others out there. I remember back in the day, I actually used to use Easy Worship. Yeah, Easy Worship, Song Select Plus, Media Shout. Those are all names that I like a long time ago, like 15, 20 years ago, were options in the game. But today, the most common one is ProPresenter 7. It's not super cheap. It's also not ridiculously expensive, something to budget for if you need it. And I really, really believe that it is super powerful and it can handle a lot of your video needs, and maybe even eliminate the need for a video switcher if you've got the right setup inside it. So if you're just one computer to a projector, your software is going to handle most of all that switching, all of those transitions. Take care with those transitions. If you're just jumping and cutting like from one video to the next or from one graphic to the next, sometimes that can be really jarring. Test it out beforehand. See if a 3-second fade is actually better. Maybe it's a half-second fade, a 0.6 second fade. Is that those things are the details that we're looking at, right, as production people. And the transitions in video world can actually make or break how it feels. Again, we don't want people to notice that like a transition's happening. It should just feel like the most natural thing. Like there's no other way it would have happened, right? That's what we want it to feel like. So whether we're fading between videos, between maybe a motion background with lyrics over it and then into a scripture verse, and then into maybe a countdown video or a bumper video or something like that, or maybe it's like an interview video, right, where you've got actual like people talking on there too. You can handle all of that inside something like ProPresenter, and just take care to pay attention how those transitions are set up. There's tons of resources online for learning how to use that. Please dig in, learn to use it, and care for those transitional moments, because They are what can take people out of that moment so fast. We want to make it disappear and make it feel like there was no other way it could happen. Okay. The next level up, if you've got multiple devices that you need to hit the projector, maybe it's 2 computers, maybe it's a camera and a computer. Maybe you need the camera with like a lower third keyed over it on the projector. Maybe it's again some video playback and then your like main like graphics or lyrics or something like that. Whatever the case may be, you are going to need some sort of video switcher. I've seen people use like little push button HDMI switchers where it's got like, 3 HDMIs in and then 1 out, and that's going to the projector. And you can just push a button and it goes 1, 2, 3 or whatever, 1 or 2, 1 and 2. And that as like the like probably like $20 setup probably gets the job done. You don't have any control over that transition. It's probably just going to be like a cut, and it's probably going to maybe even have like a little bit of a logo in between, which could be distracting and not conducive to the service. Also, you don't have the option then to, if one of them is a camera, you don't have the option of layering any like lower third scriptures or anything like that for like maybe if your pastor is teaching and he wants to have some slides that come up over top of him while he's speaking. You don't have that option if you're just using like a little push button HDMI switcher. You would need something like an actual video switcher. Things like the Blackmagic Design A10 Mini can be a great starting point. There's even lots of other stuff for a slightly like lower price point on Amazon, all the way up to full-fledged like Ross Carbonite with open gear frame, racks of gear. If you've got multiple cameras, multiple video sources, those are the systems I've worked with recently, and they're so great. And they can be overkill for what you need. So I always tell people, look at exactly what you need. Do you have a camera that you need to use? Cool. You're probably going to want a video switcher at that point just to give you the most flexibility and control over it, because you can add in keyers. Like I was saying, you can add in maybe picture in picture if you need that for something. You can then really control your transitions. Sometimes they even have a physical T-bar, and you can manually make those switches between different sources, which just allows you the most control over all of those different sources. A lot of times these are also software controllable. So you can go in and maybe create custom commands and presets in there that make it super easy for your volunteers to run and to switch with. Something like the Elgato Stream Deck can also talk to a lot of these switchers, and you can create easy little buttons that are going to do multiple actions for them, like switching to the camera and turning on the keyer for the pastor, and just make the workflow more simple for your team. There is just a plethora of gear out there. There's no shortage of gear. I always recommend buying something that does what you need it to do the best. So don't just buy the latest and greatest because it's the latest and greatest, and don't buy the cheapest because it's the cheapest. Instead, say, what do I need it to do and what tool is going to serve me best and is within my budget, because we are stewards of what we've been given. And at the end of the day, we're not going to go spend the church's money on something that we don't need, right? So look at your budget, figure out what your budget is, look at your needs, and then figure out where the best intersection of that is. Probably not the cheapest, definitely not the most expensive, newest, flashiest thing. Find out what you need, find the tool to serve you best. Once you have your tools set up, whether it's software and you're setting up all your transitions in like ProPresenter or something like that, or it's a video switcher. I keep hitting this mic today. Or it's like a video switcher, then take time during the week to plan your transitions, practice them. In some cases where you've got the control, go ahead and pre-program them. Be flexible once you get in the moment, and maybe if you've got a rehearsal, test them in the rehearsal. Make sure that's going to work. But if you can do that ahead of time and get that ahead of your, especially for your volunteers, right? If you've pre-programmed transitions that they can just fire at the right moment, then that's going to be just such a support to them. They're going to feel like absolute pros when they go to execute the service. It's going to look pro. You're going to be like, I didn't do that. You did that. And they will feel supported by you, but also they'll feel like very proud of themselves, and that they're contributing significantly in our community because they were able to execute at such a high level because of the pre-work that we were able to do for them. And when I say smooth transitions, it doesn't always mean a dissolve, right? If I'm cutting between cameras on the weekends, I am hitting cut, right? To go from like one camera to the next, to the next, to the next. I'm probably using cuts. But sometimes if there's a slow song, it's going to be a slow fade. If it's the pastor, it's almost always a cut, because it gets weird, especially if it's like this angle of his face and then it's like this angle of him. Having this weird like dissolve into like this other angle. I realized that I am like gesturing a lot and pointing even earlier at lights in the room. And so if you're just listening to this on audio, catch us on YouTube, House Lights Podcast. Go check out the video version there, and hopefully like some of this will come into better context. But if I've got like a straight on shot of the pastor, and then I've got maybe a profile shot of him, if I'm using a dissolve, then there's going to be times where his face straight on and his face from the side is going to be overlapped with each other. And it's just going to be awkward and weird and really like, oh, that felt funny. So using cuts for that moment, just ka-choo, ka-choo. I don't know if that's the sound it makes, but it is today. And that's going to help that feel most natural. However, it feels really weird at the end of something to cut to black. Cutting to black or from black always feels a little bit weird, unless you want that like very like, maybe it's like a dramatic like in or boom out, like a dramatic like close, and you can cut in and out of black in those cases. But for the most part, I've always found that, especially if you're coming into a graphic or if you're coming into a camera shot from black, using a dissolve, either an auto dissolve with a button or a T-bar dissolve, can let you really make that feel a lot more natural coming into there. It's like we're revealing the next thing that we're on. So coming out of black into like a motion graphic, I always think like a dissolve works best. But between lyrics, most of the time, a cut is best. Sometimes there's a slow song with dissolves, but that can look really weird and be really distracting and sometimes hard to keep up with. So the whole point is, those are some ideas on how to use transitions, but the bigger idea is to experiment with each different kind of transition and decide which transition you need for which moment ahead of time, so that there's no guesswork when it comes to the service. Principle 3, we've kind of already hit on it, but it's intentionality. That's the broad term I'm using. What I mean by that is use what you need to. It's very tempting when we look at what other churches have. Maybe if we've got projectors and we see other churches that have LED walls, if we have no cameras and we're like, wow, it'd be really cool to have cameras in the room, and we see these other churches that have cameras, it can be really, really tempting to just be like, well, let's like do a giving campaign. Let's just like figure it out in the budget to be able to like buy an LED wall or buy a camera, or buy 2 cameras, maybe buy another camera and a video switcher to go along with it. Maybe you have the budget for it, what I would recommend is don't just buy what you have the budget for. Buy what serves you. Buy what serves your church, what serves your community, what serves your pastor, what serves your teams, and don't worry so much about what other people are doing or what the cool, hot, like trendy fashion is right now. But instead, make the decision for your people. One of the big like hot topics that I've talked with people about in different churches is whether they should go to IMAG, which is image magnification, or not. It's where you have somebody on stage, and not only are they on stage, but you've got a camera pointed at them, and they've got like video of them in the room. I believe that most small venues do not need this. My rule of thumb is if the person on the screen is not any bigger than the person on the stage due to the size of the screen, which is dependent on the size of the room, then I think it's not really needed because like they could be seen just on the stage. If the room is really, really long, that can become different. You may need to get some bigger screens and then put some cameras. And so you can put them up there larger than they are in life. And that will allow you to be able to be seen and connect in a way that you can't across a very, very deep, very, very large room. There may be churches, and I've known many of these, and I think a lot would fall into this category as well, where maybe you need maybe you do need a camera because you want to live stream online your message, or you just want to record it and post it online later. And then like sometimes you're like, well, we've got it here, let's put it on the screen. But again, if it's like distracting and if it's not actually helpful for people to see, and it's not engaging for them in the room, I think that can be a really like you're adding more complexity, you're adding more processes where maybe it's not needed. And on top of it not being needed, maybe it actually becomes a distraction. And so I think there are tons of times where we don't even need cameras at all in the room. Maybe we just need a camera recording, and we're recording for our live stream, but it's never seen in the room. And I think both of those can be really, really appropriate depending on your stage in your church. And then I absolutely believe that there's times where IMAG, we're in just a huge, like we've got 3,000 people in this room. It's big, it's deep, like they're so far away. There's no way I can like connect with the pastor's face. Like I can't see his eyes in person. So let's put a camera up. Let's make sure it can zoom in enough to be able to see his face, see his expression, and help with that connection. At the end of the day, IMAG is to help people that can't see the pastor, or see the worship leader, see the worship leader. There are some artistic, considerations, which can be great. And you can really get creative with your cut. And I think all of that is like so fun and so good. And I've seen some really amazing directors be able to call and direct their cameras and cut it just right to be super inspiring while also functional. And I think that function is where we all have to start, because at the end of the day, if we're not helping people connect, if we're not helping people hear the message better, see the message better, connect with God's word, and with whoever's delivering that word, then we're missing the point. I think a very similar thing can go with LED walls. They're also really, really popular right now. And it seems like, oh man, we just got projectors, and we'd love to get to an LED wall one day. And maybe that is a goal one day, but there's a lot of considerations that go into an LED wall. Like most of them, you can't just plug an HDMI cord into. You've got to have a processor that's then programmed to handle those panels in that configuration, with that like color calibration. And you've got to get the brightness just right to where it's not too bright in the room. There's also, they take a lot more power per like square foot of screen than a projector would, even a bright projector. And so like, if you're like, oh, well, we've got the budget to buy this LED wall, let's just buy it. Then you realize, oh, we can't power this. We're tripping all the breakers. Geez, now we have to go like get, a power upgrade to our building. And now we've got electricians and contractors and all of that, and dealing with all of that. Now you're having to like check the specs on it. Do your homework first, because you can run into a lot of headaches by buying a piece of gear that maybe your space isn't ready for. At the same time, I don't know that like if you've got control of your lighting in your room where it's not, you don't have a ton of screen wash, and you don't necessarily need a super bright display. I don't know that you necessarily need LED wall. A lot of times a projector can be much more cost effective and much simpler to set up and operate than an LED wall. So at the end of the day, add video when it serves people, not when it impresses people. This one is going to go specifically to people using cameras. Now, I would say this applies to whether you're just pre-recording videos that you're going to show during service, or whether you're shooting live for online live stream stuff, or whether you're shooting for we're doing all of the above and an in-room IMAG cut. Composition is king when it comes to video. So just making sure that you have things in the frame well, you've got proper headroom for your subject, that they're not like escaping you as the pastor walks across the stage. He's not like jumping out of the frame, that you're not getting weird stuff in the background that you don't want to see, that you're not getting obnoxious things in the foreground in front of your camera, like between your camera and your subject, that you don't want to see. Also, there's some very common, very like widely accepted rules of composition of what looks right. So the rule of thirds, for example, if you divide your screen into thirds horizontally and vertically, you can arrange things on those thirds, putting your subject's eyes often on that top third, putting things on the left third, the right third, can look much more engaging than just having everything centered all the time. Leading lines is another thing, like having lines in your frames that are leading to your subjects. Maybe if you're doing IMAG, you've got a camera over near the drummer, maybe you're positioning that camera to where there's like maybe some of the drum hardware is like leading to the face of the drummer, because he's one of the people leading the people in worship on stage, and his face and him worshiping is much more engaging than just seeing the kick drum or just the snare. And so the rule of thirds will help you balance your frame and will help you to place your subjects in the frame better. Headroom will keep people from being too crowded up at the top of the frame, like this, or like cutting their head off outside the frame. If you're watching the video version of this, that's what's happening right now. And then if you have too much headroom, it can actually feel like your subject is actually like really small, and like maybe that they're like sinking. Now, if you're filming stuff ahead of time, and this is going into like cinematography and like videography kind of stuff, which I'm not like an ultra expert on, there are times where you want those things. If you want your subject to like visually look crowded, maybe you are using less headroom. Maybe you've got a tighter framing on them because you want them to feel like maybe anxious and all of that. But if you're just cramping your pastor on stage, you're gonna incite that like cramped and anxious kind of vibe in just the video that you're presenting, and that's not helping his message. And so, or if you've got him feeling really small, you can lose authority on the video. If he looks like he's sinking, he can feel lost, like he's like alone and small. And again, like if that's what you're going for, if that's the message you're trying to communicate, awesome. Use your framing and composition to do that. But if that's not the message, then make sure that you're not making those mistakes, because you will subconsciously communicate those things to people through your composition and framing decisions. Camera movement is a widely debated topic, and how much camera movement, what kind of camera movement. I support both. I love camera movement, but it needs to be controlled camera movement. I don't want this like Super 8 shakiness when I'm trying to like watch the pastor. But at the end of the day, like I don't want to like a lockdown camera because he's gonna walk and go like off this way, right? Um, so having cameras on tripods is great, especially for a pastor. And I think that if you're just starting out, put your cameras on tripods and call it a day. It's going to be awesome. Have good operators, get fluid head tripods so that you can move. You can move well, move smoothly. Yes, they're more expensive, but they will smooth out those pans, those tilts so much better. Fluid head tripods. Um, if you are running tons of cameras and you are going to run handheld cameras, then I think that you can really benefit a lot from some sort of stabilizer. So I've seen churches use gimbals like something like a DJI Ronin with smaller cameras on it to get that like really really ultra smooth gimbal look, very cinematic, very cool. I've seen people do handheld without any support, and it can look really shaky. That's tough to do, especially if somebody's not doing that all the time. Professional camera operators can do that to a degree that, our volunteers might not be as practiced and ready for. There are easy rigs, which have, it's like a backpack you put on. It's got an arm that comes over your head, and then you can connect that to your camera, and it holds the weight of the camera so that you can control it and you're not fighting the weight of it. And it will help to smooth out a lot of those handheld shots. That's another great option. There's also, I'm totally losing the name of it right now. But it's effectively like, a bag, more or less like a sandbag with a strap on it that you strap around you, and your camera like sits on it and rests on it. So you've got it here kind of against your chest, and a lot of and you've got extra stability and a lot of extra control over it in those cases. I know a lot of like documentary filmmakers will use those as they're out on site because it's easy. It's low profile. It's easy to pack and take with you. At the end of the day, a well composed static shot or a well composed like supported shot on a tripod is going to be much more engaging and much less distracting than a ton of shaky handheld cameras all over the place. So make your decisions intentionally, and scale to what you're able to execute and what will actually serve the message you're trying to communicate. Learn about composition, learn about videography, learn about different support systems for cameras. There's sliders and dollies and stuff like that. You can go all out. There's even robotic dollies these days. It's super cool. Just Google that, and like you have these fully like automated, like go look at the one they used for Severance. That one was sick. The way they did that. You could use all of those things in your church. But what we want to decide is what will serve us and what kinds of shots communicate the message that we want to communicate. And the last principle for video is lighting. Don't tell the lighting guys I said this, but like without lighting, there is no video, because our camera sensors are capturing the light on a sensor and translating that into digital video, right? Like on film, it's like we were exposing this film to light that was super sensitive, and it literally, like wherever the light beams hit it, it burned into that film the negative, and you could then develop that. The digital sensors are the same way. They're super dependent on light. If you're going to just have video in your room, what you want to make the biggest considerations for lighting is that your lights are not washing out your projectors. They're not hitting your projectors. They're not hitting LED walls as well, because it can just look a little bit weird. It's less of a problem with washing out, but it can like illuminate the face of it, and it gets just a little bit distracting. You don't want to wash out your video. So making sure that your lights are dim enough in your room at the right time when you want to call attention to video. when it's making sure that maybe you are actually disconnecting some of your house lights if they are like close enough to your screen that they're like casting wash on it. Maybe it's your face lights for your people on the stage. Maybe they need to be adjusted to where they're not hitting the screen, where you can even adjust some stage positions around so that you can adjust the lights to hit people but not hit the screen. It can be really distracting. You can also make a projector that is actually like bright enough for your room. It can make it feel like it's too dim for your room. And that can be a really easy solution to get some more perceived brightness out of your projector, is making sure that you're not washing it out with too much light in the room. Controlling windows is also another big one. It doesn't look like we don't see generally a hot spot on there because of like windows in the room, but it's just throwing tons of really dispersed daylight into the room, which is going to make that projector feel so much dimmer. Maybe if you've got a significant portion of the video service, maybe you've got blinds that can come down. Maybe they're motorized. Maybe you can just pull blinds down for service and then you can let them back up between services or before and after service, depending on your context. And maybe if you've got tons of windows and you can't control that lighting at all, maybe that's time where you're like, okay, we need to step up to a brighter projector. We need to step up to maybe an LED wall, because where if you're fighting tons and tons of light, the LED wall will seem brighter. There's a lot of considerations that goes into that, but that could be one of the deciding factors for you. If you then introduce cameras, it's not just not washing out the screens, though that's still going to be a consideration, no matter your context. Once you introduce cameras, you now have to light the people, your subjects, well. So not only do you have to make sure that your video on screen looks good, you have to make sure that the cameras have all of the light that they need. In general, cameras need more light than our eyes. So even if you've got a face light that's hitting a person on stage, it's like comfortable and natural to look at them, or maybe there's just plenty of light from the house lights and the windows that it feels comfortable looking at someone on stage. The moment you put a camera on there, they're going to look dark. I can almost guarantee it. It will not be enough light. You're going to need key light. You're going to need face light, front light, whatever you want to call it. You're going to need light on your subject for them to be able to be seen on camera. Not only do you need like front light, but it needs to, again, like we talked about earlier, we need to make sure that it is matching in white balance, which means they need to match each other. All the fixtures you use need to match each other, whether that's gels in conventional fixtures or that it's LED fixtures with presets. They all need to be the same color so that you can set your cameras to the correct white balance and make those people feel as natural on camera as possible. Stage lights alone like just aren't going to cut it, right? Like even if you've got like maybe it's like little tiny track lighting or like top down lighting that feels okay. If you're just watching people in the room, you're really going to need some dedicated key light. And that can be a bit of a project. So consider that if you're considering adding cameras, you're going to need to add lighting. So just take that into consideration for budgets, and for install time and work time and like added complexity. Because that's a real thing. Keeping things simple is really important. And then also making sure that if maybe you're changing to cameras and now you've been maybe programming some lights in the room, you've got LED lights, now you need to make sure that those aren't blowing out your subjects when it hits them on the side. Maybe you've got some LED wash pointed at your band and your drummer, and then you come to that camera and it's like, oh my goodness, he's like so bright. And then you go to the bass player and he's like really dark, and it's, there's extra considerations, and you may have to change your lighting programming to support being on camera. In our context here at the church I work with, we have one broadcast campus. And so Aaron, our lighting designer there at that campus, he is having to make really, really intentional decisions on how to light people while also programming for a great experience in the room. So that's a really, really fine line that I think he walks just tremendously. He can program for in the room and on camera super well. Whereas most of my programming experience has been with just in room experience programming. So I'm not having to worry about blowing out camera sensors or washing maybe a backline band member like too little or too much to be seen on camera. I could just feel it out in the room, but there's gonna be just a lot more there's going to be a lot more considerations for your lighting once you introduce cameras. So again, that's why I've said, make sure that whatever decisions you make for gear and strategy, that it actually serves what you want to accomplish. If you can't see people on camera, then you're missing the point, right? If you can't see them clearly, they're not going to be able to connect, and connection is the point at the end of the day. Those are our 5 principles for today: consistency, smooth execution, intentionality with our choices, composition, and lighting. These will scale to any size church, any budget level, and to any context that you put them in. Start with one. Figure out, man, what do we want to do? How can we be intentional with the gear we have? And then, okay, what will take us to the next level? Where do we want to go? And that's going to be a discussion for your leadership team, for your creative team, just figuring out, okay, where do we want to go? What changes can we start now? What can we start dialing in and getting like so good at the craft of now before we add in cameras, before we have to add in extra lighting to support those cameras, before we have to make a major upgrade and go to an LED wall? Can we, color correct our projectors? What can we do right now to move the needle forward? Pick one that you want to try and dial in with your team this week. And I think that can be really, 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 really helpful. At the end of the day, great video is going to serve both the message that we're trying to communicate and the moment that we're trying to create for people. Great video isn't about what you have. It's about how you use what you have. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out and listening, and I hope that this was helpful for you. If it was, and you're on YouTube, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know which principle you're going to dive into this week. If you know someone who has been struggling with their video systems and maybe they need a framework to go by, feel free to send them a link to this. You guys can always reach out to me, gabe@houselightspodcast.com. Would love to hear from you. Would love to answer any questions you have. And even support you as you are looking into any of these more technical things. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.